Joining me now is the Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters of California. She represents the state's 43rd congressional district in the Los Angeles area. She's the highest-ranking Democrat on the House Financial Services Committee and a great friend of our show. Congresswoman, good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Delighted to be with you this morning.
Let's talk about, there's a whole bunch of things to talk about here. First of all, banks. There are still Americans who are worried, maybe not legitimately so, but they're worried about their money in the bank and whether the bank's going to fail. And a bank run is just psychological. It may have nothing to do with fact. If you think your bank's going to fail, you take your money out. One of the things that I think has to be on your mind, particularly in California, is how to stop that from happening again.
Well, let me just say this. I think the American people should take a look at what happened a couple of weeks ago in Silicon Valley and understand that there was the potential for bank runs on small banks, on regional banks all over this country. However, your government did something good. The feds got together, the Treasury got together, FDIC, they all got together and they worked over basically a 48-hour period of time, and they prevented that from happening. They prevented that from happening. They insured all of the depositors at the Silicon Valley Bank. And so the way that they handled that avoided the possibility of bank runs. They closed down that bank. First, our state regulators stepped in. They closed it down. The feds, again, and the FDIC all moved in with the Treasury, and they handled what could have been a catastrophe. They closed down Signature Bank. Signature Bank had some of the same problems, a little bit different. They were too much involved in crypto, I believe. But anyhow, they saved a bank run on small banks and, again, regional banks. That's good. We've still got some things that have to be done. We have to make sure that there are regulations on our banks that will protect the depositors and protect the investors. Some of the members of Congress on both sides of the aisle voted for some legislation that gave the Fed the opportunity not to pay attention to red flags. That was deregulation. We've got to cure that. I led the fight against that. We tried to convince many of our members that this would be harmful, and it turned out that it is harmful. And so we're coming back in a bipartisan way. I'm working with Mr. McHenry, and we're going to hold our hearings, and we're going to come up with legislation to cure the deregulation that should not have taken place in the first place.
You said something interesting. You said it's bipartisan. That doesn't tend to happen with banking regulation. That's one of those few things that Democrats tend to think there should be more regulation. It's not always the case, and Republicans think there should be less. Has everybody had enough of a taste of this to say, let's just make, I mean, in my opinion, banking is the safest industry in the world because you borrow, you give people money, you take money from depositors and you lend it to other people and you make money in between. It should be more strictly regulated than it is, but it never ends up happening.
It really should be, but I am very optimistic. Between the failure of crypto with FTX, between the failure of Silicon Valley Bank, and the failure of Signature, and all of that, I think now we have an opportunity to basically say, told you so. And so we've got to correct this. We've got to make sure that there are the regulations that will protect the people, the depositors, and people who depend on their banks to keep their money safe.
Let me ask you about this battle between inflation and interest rates. You talk to constituents who hate both, right? Nobody wants higher interest rates and nobody wants inflation, but we don't seem to have a better plan right now. You heard what Elizabeth Warren said. She thinks the Federal Reserve is not doing the job it should. What do you think should happen, and what do you think can happen?
Well, you know, raising interest rates is the traditional way. It is supposedly the intellectual way. It is a way by which you contain inflation. It has not been working in the way that it should. Now, what Powell did in this last raise was he tried to keep it low to 25 basis points. But, of course, it doesn't look good right now. We may be in for a recession. And He's got to do everything that he possibly can. Everybody's got to weigh in. If there is a better answer, we've got to find it. We've got to find that answer. We don't have it now. This is all that we have as a traditional way of containing inflation, is the rise in interest rates. I don't like it. My constituents don't like it. Young people who want to buy a house don't like it because the interest rates are just too high. There are some people, of course, who make money off of rising interest rates, but the average person does not. And so, no, we're in a point in time in the history of our economics that the answers do not appear to be there, but we've got to do everything that we can to bring down inflation and contain the rise in interest rates.
Congresswoman, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining us. Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters of California.
Welcome.